What if everything you thought about high-yield food plants was completely wrong? Most people imagine big orchards filled with apple, peach, or pear trees when they think about growing food. But the truth is, some of the most productive plants on the planet don't grow on towering trees at all. In fact, many of them are so compact, you can grow them in a simple pot right on your balcony or porch. In today's video, we're going to explore 15 incredible plants that can completely change the way you think about growing your own food. Number 15, Malabar spinach, the summer heat leaf factory. Here's a plant most American gardeners have never grown, and it deserves way more attention. Malabar spinach isn't true spinach. It's a tropical vine that thrives in the summer heat that kills regular greens. When spring spinach bolts and lettuce fades, Malabar spinach climbs its trellis, producing dense, glossy, edible leaves all season long. The leaves are thick, slightly succulent, and mild in flavor, perfect for fresh salads or cooked like regular spinach. One properly supported plant can supply a family with fresh greens for the entire summer, filling the summer greens gap that frustrates many gardeners. Nutritionally, it's impressive, high in vitamins A and C, calcium, and iron. It got overlooked because it's tropical, requires indoor starting in cooler climates, and was absent from many seed catalogs, but gardeners who discover it find a true summer leaf powerhouse. This is the plant that keeps feeding you when every other green in your garden has surrendered to the heat. Number 14, cucumbers on a trellis, the vertical explosion. Cucumbers aren't just sprawling vines, vertical trellising changes the game entirely. A trellis keeps the fruit clean, maximizes air circulation to reduce disease, and lets you grow massive quantities in a tiny footprint. 5 or 6 plants on a 6 by 6 foot trellis can produce dozens of cucumbers per week during peak season. Here's the trick: harvest often and early. The moment a cucumber is left to fully mature, the plant slows down. Pick young, pick often, and it keeps producing non-stop. A small nub on Monday can be ready by Thursday. Cucumbers are water-rich, refreshing, and essentially free once established. In the height of summer, a trellised cucumber patch produces more food per square foot per week than almost anything else in the garden. They're proof that a trellis isn't just an accessory, it's a production multiplier. Number 13, cherry tomatoes, the hundreds of fruits machine. Remember that plant I teased at the beginning? Here it is. Cherry tomatoes are a production powerhouse. One single plant can give you hundreds of fruits in a single season, often several pounds per week at peak harvest. They're small but relentless, occupying just a couple of square feet, yet producing from midsummer all the way until frost. Varieties like Sun Gold, Black Cherry, and Sweet Million are legendary for a reason: unmatched flavor, endless production, and sweetness that disappears faster than you can pick it. The secret is meeting their cultural needs. Full sun, consistent watering, and fertile soil. Once you do, a cherry tomato plant becomes the closest thing to a fruit tree in just one season, producing an incredible first-year harvest from seed in as little as 4 months. Most gardeners think of cherry tomatoes as cute extras, but anyone running a 3-plant trellis knows the truth: this is a small-space fruit factory that outproduces most dwarf fruit trees in its first summer. Number 12, peas, early-season heavy hitters. Peas solve a different problem: timing. They thrive in the cool seasons of spring and fall, filling the gap when most other crops aren't ready yet. Plant a trellis of peas in April or May, and you suddenly have fresh, homegrown vegetables when most gardens are still dormant. That early harvest is incredibly valuable. Peas are also super efficient per square foot. Pick frequently, and they keep producing. Stop harvesting, and they focus on seeds instead. Different varieties give you versatility. Sugar snap peas, eat the whole pod, increasing yield. Shelling peas, high-protein harvests. Snow peas, tender pods perfect for fresh eating or stir-fries. Number 11, pole beans, the vertical protein powerhouse. Now we're shifting gears from shrubs to vegetables, and these plants operate on a whole different level. Pole beans are one of the most productive food plants you can grow when you consider the full season. Here's why. They grow vertically on trellises, using airspace that would otherwise go unused. They fix their own nitrogen, improving the soil while feeding you. Most importantly, they produce continuously. Pick a bean, and another appears. Stop picking, and production slows. The plant's goal is to make seeds, so your regular harvesting keeps it working hard. A trellis 6 feet tall and 8 feet wide can feed a family fresh beans several times a week for months, from summer until frost. And unlike most fruit, beans pack real nutrition, protein, fiber, and essential nutrients. For anyone thinking about truly feeding a family, pole beans deserve a prime spot in the garden. Number 10, sea buckthorn, the orange powerhouse. This is where things get really interesting. Sea buckthorn produces bright orange berries that grow so tightly along the branches, it almost looks like the stems are coated in fruit. When the plant is fully loaded, the branches can actually bend under the weight. The berries are intensely flavored, sharp, vibrant, and incredibly rich in nutrients. They're widely used in different parts of the world for juices, syrups, and health tonics, and even the oil extracted from them is highly valued. What makes this plant even more impressive is how much it produces relative to its size. With the right setup, including both male and female plants for pollination, you can harvest large quantities. Number 9, Aronia, chokeberry, the hidden superfood. Here's a plant that the health industry is already charging premium prices for, without most people realizing they can grow it themselves. Aronia, also known as chokeberry, produces large clusters of dark berries that weigh down the branches when fully ripe. The yield is huge. A single mature shrub can produce an impressive amount of fruit every year. And the plant itself? Extremely tough. It handles cold, drought, poor soil, and even less than ideal conditions with ease. Once it's established, it practically takes care of itself. The taste is strong and a bit sharp when eaten fresh, but once processed, into juice, dried fruit, or jams, it becomes something entirely different. The real value, though, is in its nutrition. These berries are packed with powerful compounds, which is why they've become so popular in powders and supplements. Number 8, lingonberries. The low-growing powerhouse. Lingonberries may be small, but don't let that fool you. These compact, evergreen plants stay close to the ground, yet when planted together, they create a dense carpet that produces an impressive amount of fruit per square foot. They're built for tough conditions, thriving in cold climates, holding onto their leaves through winter, and producing bright red berries not just once, but often twice a year. They also slowly spread on their own, filling in empty space and turning into a productive ground cover over time. If you've ever had that tangy red sauce served with Swedish dishes, you've already tasted what lingonberries can do. Their flavor is bold and slightly tart, making them perfect alongside rich, savory foods. Despite all this, most gardeners have never even considered growing them. Number 7, honeyberries, the earliest harvest of the season. Here's a question most gardeners don't think about. What can you harvest when everything else is still not ready? That's exactly where honeyberries stand out. These plants produce fruit incredibly early, often before strawberries, before cherries, and before most other berries in your garden. When everything else is still growing, honeyberries are already ready to pick. For anyone who's ever wanted fresh, homegrown fruit earlier in the season, this is a game changer. They're also extremely tough plants. Honeyberries can handle very cold climates and continue to thrive where many other fruits struggle. That makes them especially valuable in regions with harsh winters. The fruit itself is unique, elongated, deep-colored berries with a flavor that blends the richness of blueberries with a slight tang and a subtle floral note. To get the best results, you plant more than one variety. This improves pollination and leads to better, more consistent harvests. Number 6, strawberries, the plant that keeps multiplying itself. Let's start with something almost everyone knows, but very few people truly understand. Strawberries might look like a simple garden treat, but behind the scenes, they're one of the most productive plants you can grow. On average, just one plant can give you around 2 to 3 pounds of fruit in a single season. That alone is pretty good, but that's not where the real magic happens. The real advantage of strawberries is how they reproduce. Instead of relying only on seeds, strawberry plants send out thin stems called runners. These stretch across the soil, take root, and turn into completely new plants, all on their own. No extra effort, no replanting. So what starts as one plant can quickly turn into a small patch, then a large one, and before you know it, you've got dozens of plants producing at the same time. Now compare that to fruit trees. With trees, you often wait years before you see a decent harvest. They need constant care, protection, and patience. Strawberries, on the other hand, start producing within the first growing season, and while they're giving you fruit, they're also expanding your garden for free. Choosing the right type also makes a difference. Some varieties give you one large harvest early in the season, which is perfect if you like making jams or storing food. Others produce smaller amounts again and again over time, which works great for everyday eating. The reason strawberries are often underestimated is simple: they're too familiar. People see them as a small bonus crop, not something serious. But if you really think about it, fast production, high yield, and the ability to multiply on their own, strawberries are incredibly efficient. This isn't just a plant that feeds you once. It's a plant that keeps growing your food supply, season after season. Number 5, raspberries, the vertical production powerhouse. Most plants spread outward across the ground. Raspberries take a completely different approach: they grow upward. And that one difference changes everything. Because raspberries grow on tall canes, you can plant them in narrow rows, guide them along supports, and still get an impressive amount of fruit from a very small. It's a smart, space-efficient system that works especially well in smaller gardens. Once a raspberry patch is established, it becomes incredibly reliable. Year after year, it produces generous harvests without demanding much attention. What really makes this plant interesting is how it grows. Raspberries follow a simple 2-year cycle. In the first year, new green canes develop. These are focused on growth. In the second year, those same canes produce fruit, and after that, they're done. If you understand this rhythm, managing raspberries becomes surprisingly easy. You remove the old, finished canes after harvest, while the next generation is already growing and getting ready to produce. You can also choose how you want your harvest to come in. Some varieties give you a big crop in early summer, while others produce later in the season. Many gardeners grow a mix of both, stretching their harvest from summer all the way into the cooler months. Compared to fruit trees, the biggest advantage here is speed. You can plant raspberries and start getting solid harvests in about a year to a year and a half, something traditional trees simply can't match. At first glance, raspberries might seem a bit intimidating. The thorns, the pruning, the structure, it can look complicated. But once you understand how the plant thinks, everything becomes straightforward. This is one of those plants that rewards a little bit of knowledge with a lot of production. Number 4, blackberries, the unstoppable producer. If raspberries are neat and controlled, blackberries are on a completely different level. These plants don't just grow, they take over, in the best possible way. Blackberries are incredibly productive. Even under average conditions, a single plant can give you a few pounds of fruit each year. But once they're fully established and happy, that number can climb much higher. What makes them truly powerful is how little they ask in return. Blackberries are tough. They can handle less than perfect soil, they don't need constant, and they'll still produce a strong harvest. Even in spots with partial shade, where many food plants struggle, blackberries continue to perform. they also have a natural way of expanding. As their long canes grow, the tips can touch the ground and root themselves, creating new plants without any extra work from you. And if you've ever avoided blackberries because of thorns, that's no longer a big issue. Modern varieties have solved that problem. You can now grow large, sweet berries on plants that are much easier to handle during harvest, without the painful scratches. The real strength of blackberries is their efficiency. You don't need complicated care routines, expensive treatments, or constant attention. Give them a bit of support to grow on, and they'll do the rest on their own. For a long time, blackberries had a bad reputation. Wild varieties tend to spread aggressively, and many people saw them as invasive. But cultivated garden varieties are a different story. With proper placement and simple management, they become one of the most reliable and rewarding plants you can grow. This is a plant that gives a lot, while asking for almost nothing in return. Number 3, blueberries, the slow start, powerful payoff. Not every high-producing plant gives instant results, and blueberries are the perfect example of that. In the beginning, they test your patience. It can take several years, often 5 to 7, before a blueberry bush reaches its full potential. But once it does, the results are seriously impressive. A single mature plant can produce 10 to 20 pounds of berries every year, all from a compact bush that doesn't take up much space. When you compare that to large fruit trees that need wide and years of maintenance, blueberries start to look like a very smart use of space. But there's one thing you have to get right: the soil. Blueberries thrive in acidic conditions, and that's something most gardens don't naturally have. So growing them successfully usually means adjusting your soil gradually or using containers or raised beds with the right mix. This is where many people quit, not because blueberries aren't productive, but because they require a little setup in the beginning. However, gardeners who stick with it unlock something powerful, a plant that can keep producing for many years with minimal effort once established. There's also a simple strategy to improve your results. Instead of planting just one bush, grow multiple varieties. This helps with pollination and gives you a longer harvest period, often stretching across several weeks. Blueberries aren't about quick wins. They're about building something that keeps paying you back year after year. This is the kind of plant that rewards long-term thinking, proving that waiting, when done right, is never wasted. Number 2, currants, the forgotten powerhouse. Now we're stepping into a category of plants that many people have never even considered, and honestly, that's a huge loss. Currants, both red and black, are some of the most underrated fruit plants you can grow. These shrubs are incredibly productive. Within just a few years of planting, they start delivering solid harvests. They don't need perfect sunlight, they handle partial shade with ease, and they're naturally resistant to many common problems that affect other fruit plants. On top of that, they're low maintenance. You don't need constant or complicated routines. In fact, you can plant them close together and turn them into a dense hedge that not only produces food but also adds structure and beauty to your garden. And then there's the nutrition. Black currants, especially, are packed with nutrients. Their vitamin C levels are extremely high, even higher than many fruits people typically think of as healthy. The flavor is bold, rich, and completely different from the standard fruits you find in stores. In terms of production, a single mature plant can give you several pounds of fruit each year, all while taking up very little space. So why don't more people grow them? Part of the reason is historical. For a long time, currants were restricted in certain places due to concerns about plant diseases affecting nearby trees. Even though those restrictions have mostly disappeared, the habit of growing currants never fully came back. As a result, an incredibly useful and productive plant quietly faded out of mainstream gardening. But for those who rediscover it, currants quickly become one of the most rewarding plants in the garden. This isn't just another fruit bush, it's something that was overlooked, and is now waiting to be brought back. Number 1, gooseberries, small space, serious output. Gooseberries are one of those plants that quietly overdeliver. They stay compact, but when the season hits, their branches get loaded with fruit. Clusters of berries line almost every stem, and at peak production, the whole bush looks packed from top to bottom. A healthy plant can produce several pounds of fruit each year, all from a space no bigger than a small shrub. And the taste? Completely different from what most people are used to. When fully ripe, gooseberries have a rich balance of sweetness and tang, with a soft texture that makes them perfect for fresh eating. It's the kind of flavor you rarely find in store-bought fruit. What makes them even better is how adaptable they are. They handle heavier soils better than most fruit plants, tolerate some shade, and don't require constant attention. Once established, they just keep producing, year after year, without much effort from you. So why don't more people grow them?